My name is Joe Leese, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Integrated Biology program at Lehigh University. I work in the lab of Professor Murray Itzkowitz. Our group conducts research in the field of behavioral ecology, which is essentially the study of the ecological and evolutionary basis for animal behavior. Some of the topics we've examined recently are the factors that influence parental care, pair bond formation, and mate choice decisions. For most of these studies, we utilize the convict cichlid as our model system. This freshwater fish is pretty interesting because males and females form monogamous pairs during the breeding season, and they actually stay together to raise a brood to maturity.
I'm Murray Itzkowitz. I'm both the chair of the Department of Biological Sciences, professor of biological sciences. And I'm also Joe Leese's dissertation advisor. Joe is interested in sexual selection in a monogamous species, but that's not all Joe is interested in. Joe is interested in pretty much everything revolving around evolution, in particular both sexual and natural selection. So when particular projects arise in the laboratory, Joe is the first to sort of jump in and say he wants to be a part of it. So that explains his publications around the interactions between natural and sexual selection in coral reef fishes, in particular the damselfish. Joe has been has an aggressive intellect where he is interested in generating data around ideas that he finds particularly fascinating. I'm particularly interested in the way he sort of looks for cutting edge areas. For example, there isn't much work done these days on how natural selection interacts with sexual selection, although it's expected to be very important. Joe took it one step further and asked questions about how two forms of sexual selection interacted with natural selection. And he did this on a little project in the coral reefs around Jamaica. That work, in fact, is published. So even though these are little side projects, Joe manages to find interesting topics and take them to completion relatively quickly.
While my dissertation work is confined to the laboratory, I greatly enjoy fieldwork and have been fortunate enough to participate in several projects that have occurred in locations ranging from tropical coral reefs to desert springs in the southwest U.S. Like my advisor, I feel that there is no replacement for field studies wherever possible as a validation of laboratory findings. I've acted as co-author on several manuscripts from work conducted in Costa Rica and the Caribbean, with a few others in preparation. During a field season in Costa Rica, my lab mate Jennifer Snexer and I observed and documented parental retrieval of non-swimming young in the convict cichlid. To our knowledge, this was the first time this behavior had been observed in the wild. During my time at Lehigh, I've had the opportunity to engage with students in both the classroom and laboratory settings. I've acted as a teaching assistant and guest lecturer for several courses offered by our department, including genetics, animal behavior, and behavioral ecology. I've also personally mentored a few undergraduate students conducting research in our lab. A current student, Emily Becker, is participating in every stage of the research process, from planning experiments to data collection, analysis, and writing. It really is rewarding to be a part of a student's education and help them learn to approach the world with a skeptical and scientific mindset. I look forward to being able to contribute to the education of students in my career after Lehigh.
Joe is really a born teacher, perhaps because he came from a small town or went to a very small undergraduate college, but he finds teaching to be extremely rewarding, which is kind of interesting given how dedicated he is to research as well. So it's not surprising that because of his dedication to teaching, that he in fact loves to mentor undergraduates that come into the laboratory. But it's more than just mentoring undergraduates. He wants them to be generating interesting data sets so they themselves are enthusiastic.
I've certainly realized that a big part of being a scientist is getting your results out to the greater scientific community. I've been fortunate enough to present some of my findings at meetings of the International Society for Behavioral Ecology and the Animal Behavior Society. In 2009, I received a National Science Foundation travel grant to attend a meeting in Pirenópolis, Brazil, and presented data on the appearance of behavioral syndromes in a field population of Caribbean damselfish.
I find it amusing that when Joe talks about his trip to Brazil, that he comes back, he feels that the talk was successful and he had a good time there, but in fact I receive phone calls from my colleagues who were there who tell me how wonderful Joe was and what a mature scientist he seems to be. I find it interesting also that the work he presented was not on his dissertation. So these are simply the projects that Joe has become attached to and has taken over and shown leadership in, that he presents at these meetings. While Joe is extremely dedicated to his field of behavioral ecology, I don't see this as sort of his terminal interest. I see Joe as extremely dedicated to the general field of evolution and of biology in general. So I could see him easily shifting between fields and perhaps going into other kinds of areas of biology, with evolution as sort of the foundation field.
I truly consider myself lucky to be participating in the study of a field that I've been fascinated with for as long as I can remember. Being able to ask interesting questions about why animals do the things they do, and then going out to test these hypotheses hardly seems like work at all. I hope to continue participating in both research and teaching in an academic setting after I receive my degree from Lehigh.